Charlie Parsons here for Boxing Social in association with William Hill and Empire Fight Store. Before we jump into this, a big shout out to yourself. Just brought me in on BBC 5 Live here. Steve, what a fight we've just witnessed. Firstly, before we talk about just how great Canelo is, John Ryder, just tremendous, the heart he showed in there tonight.
You know, we knew he's brave, we knew he wasn't going to quit. He'd been angry all week, or angry for John because he's a calm guy. He'd been upset at suggestions that he'd be put under pressure, too much pressure, and that he'd be forced to take a knee or maybe be yanked out by his corner. But from the very start, it was clear he was being hurt with shots, and he fought back. Dropped heavily in the fifth. I thought it was all over. Dropped in the eighth, wobbled in the seventh, wobbled in the ninth. Coming back in rounds 10, 11 and 12 with a nose injury, not a nosebleed. Let's qualify that, Charlie, all right? Yeah. A nosebleed is a nosebleed. That was a nose injury. He spent, from about round 3, he spent the entire 2 minutes, or the entire minute of the break, standing up in the corner, spitting out mouthfuls, throatfuls of blood, which is both dangerous and also just absolutely knocks you sideways. I spoke to Sergio Mora, former world champion, after the fight, and he reiterated that, just how dangerous that is and how grueling that is. So John, against the backdrop of having to remove non-stop mouthfuls of blood at the end of each round with a nose injury in front of 55,000 people in Canelo's home state against the great fighter, put on heroics, and I think he nicked at least 3 rounds, maybe 4, but he was in the fight, he was in the rounds. It was guts, it was bravery, it was ridiculous. Forget the belts, it was about pride and heart tonight.
Steve, the whole team were under no disillusion all week that it was probably the best time to fight Canelo. At the same time, they did expect him to gas. He showed no signs of that in there. Testament to John also, I was just saying to you before, those body shots from first, second, third round, you're almost thinking, wow, we can't see this going past 6, and he just kept taking them. You talk about the blood on the face, a bloody mess from maybe round 2. The punishment he was taking, we have to rank that as the best British performance against Canelo. I know victorious, but he comes out of that ring as the hardest man in England tonight.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Yeah, and Canelo's taken care of a lot of British boxers. He's taken them out with punches, one-shot punches, or he's worn them down, or he's won comfortably on points. The John Ryder fight was a different type of fight. It was a swashbuckling brawl that he's managed to have there between the two of them. And I mean, without a doubt, Canelo knows he's been in a fight. You know, Sergio Mora was telling me, Eddie Hearn was telling me after the fight, or when the fight was over, that he was marked up, Canelo. He knows he's been in a fight. That wasn't the walk in the park homecoming that perhaps he expected, that perhaps he thought he would get. Even though he won at least maybe 9 of the rounds, one judge gave him all 12. I think that's a bit harsh. The bottom line is, Charlie, he's had to fight really hard, especially in the last 3 rounds. And I'm not saying John necessarily won those rounds clearly, but he was forcing Canelo to work hard in those last 3 rounds. We've seen blood and guts and bravery and heroism here tonight. Is it the bravest performance I've ever seen by a British boxer in a world title fight? Listen, if it's not the bravest, Chris Eubank against Carl Thompson many years ago at cruiserweight, that might be the bravest. That's a top 3. We've seen some great stuff here tonight.
Steve, just lastly from me, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Next for Canelo, a lot of talk about that Bivol rematch. I think Bivol wants it down at 168. Canelo wants it at 175. If he goes and beats him at 168, the argument is that they boiled him down. Do you believe from what he showed in there tonight? I know styles make fights, and very, very different John Ryder from Bivol. But do you think he can be victorious in that rematch?
I still think he can be victorious in a rematch. He can be victorious in a rematch with Bivol, but I think there is a bit of a dispute over the weight, more of a dispute than perhaps we're outlining there. And I think Canelo got a bit upset earlier this week, I think on about Monday, when there was a suggestion, basically he was saying, look, you don't give me enough credit to the world's press. I went up to 175, I don't get enough credit. I won a world title at 175, I don't get enough credit. I went up against the unbeaten Dimitri Bivol, I lost, I don't get enough credit. He said, so basically, I think he's talking about trying to bring Bivol down, to not bring Bivol down, to not make him boil down, to go back up to 175, or maybe even make the fight a 170, Charlie, something like that. Basically, Canelo is, the way I read it, is Canelo doesn't want to beat Bivol, and then someone say, yeah, but you only did that because you made him boil down, you didn't beat the real Bivol, you only beat half a Bivol. And I can assure you, Canelo doesn't want to beat Bivol, then have people criticise it. He wants to beat Bivol on terms that everybody considers fair, and then wander away. How many more years will we see of Canelo Alvarez? He told me a couple of years ago he'd fight till he was 37 or 38. He's only 32 now. I don't think he's got 6 years of fights like that in him. I don't think he's got 5 years of fights like that in him. But who knows? 63rd fight tonight. What about the 23rd world title fight? 22 world champions he's met along the way. Brilliant, dangerous ones, unbeaten ones, southpaws. Boy, oh boy, the man's got nothing to prove.
Steve, thank you so much. A real pleasure.